Well, another Monday is here, and today I'm going to show you some random solutions that I have to, well, basically when we run into a problem that we didn't expect, where it seems like a simple repair turns into a difficult one, we have to come up with some way to take care of the problem that's going to work, unless we decide to give up. Now, this guy here on the top, and I see these all the time, you know, I've taken pictures of this before, but I saw the one on the bottom the other day. This guy didn't give up like the guy on the top did and just let the hole in the tailgate stay there and pull on the rods with his fingers to open the tailgate. He went ahead and engineered a repair by getting the right stuff, putting it in there, and putting a couple of screws in there instead of depending on those little dogs to pop it in place and hold it. I guarantee you that thing will be there for the duration. So engineering a repair is sometimes the best way. Was there anything wrong with this guy's repair? No. He's got a couple of screws. It looks like he pretty well spaced them the right way where they would look right. And I think he did a wonderful job. I've never seen anybody else do this, but there may be, some of you guys may have seen somebody that did this. All right, this geo tracker I've talked about before, but never in this much detail. What we had on this one here was an air conditioner that she claimed worked last fall, but it wouldn't work when it started to get warm in the spring. And so it was a 96 model, as I remember. But the long and the short of it was, when I got it in there, you got to remember, I was looking at, here's this tracker that's supposed to work. Now, there's supposed to be a switch right here. All right, all we had there was a blind plug. There was no switch. Because of the fact that she told me the air conditioner had worked last fall, I didn't have any reason to think there should be a switch there, because I wasn't terribly familiar with this particular year model of Geo Tracker or anything quite like it. Although I had seen those little buttons you push that's got the blue light that comes on when you've energized your air conditioner. Just so happened this one didn't have one, so we went under the hood and found everything this thing had factory for air conditioning. I'm talking about, this was the factory stuff. The AC amplifier was in place and everything, but the switch was missing, okay? And so when I finally determined there was no switch, and boy was that an adventure getting there, we actually found this little connector that you see over here, this little connector right here, and it was behind that blind plug and had never been plugged into anything because the wires were stiff like it had been, stiff and straight like when it was a new harness. And all the wires were there, and all you had to do to get the air conditioner to kick on was basically jump from here to here, and your AC would come on anytime you turned on the fan. If you put it on any position where there was any kind of airflow at all and the fan was running, as long as you had this jump. See, that switch was $70, and I told her we need to put this switch in here, and she said, I don't want to pay $70 for a switch. And so I just went ahead and jumpered the pink wire to the blue one. Now, this ground one was the only reason it was there was because it had an LED in the switch that was supposed to light up. But we didn't have any need for that ground. All we needed to do was bypass the dadgum switch. And see, I actually put the switch down here, moved out of the way. But the simple fact is, that took care of that problem. That was a workaround. It was not dangerous. It didn't hurt a thing. It didn't matter if her air conditioner kicked on, even when she was using the heater. And obviously it kicks on when using a defrost anyway. But that was just a mysterious thing that I never have figured out. I asked her, I said, has anybody worked on your vehicle? Has anybody replaced parts of the dash or anything? She said, no, not at all. And she'd had it for a long time. I think she bought it used. But the simple fact was, it was built without an AC switch. It looks to me like. All right, now this is a guy that's just trying to get by. You know what I mean? You see this, I mean, he's got to have a light there, and the bumper's so screwed up. He doesn't want to pay for a bumper. I can't hardly blame him for that. You know, if he really wanted to be somebody that was innovative, he might take his bumper off, put it on the concrete, and try to kind of beat it back into shape. But as it was, since he needed a light, he got a light, and he just put it on there with one screw and let it flop. So when he has turn signal, this is on a Toyota. I thought that was pretty cool. I ran into this when I was in a grocery store parking lot one day, and I figured, oh, that's a picture for my people. All right. Fuel filter replacement on this Toyota. Camry. The shop manual says, Toyota does not provide specific instructions for fuel filter replacement. However, important related procedures are discussed under service precautions. Now, the translation is, you're on your own. Well, no big deal. Hey, how many hundreds and thousands of fuel filters have us mechanics changed over the decades of our career? Well, this is the way that went. It had its filter mounted on the driver's side shock tower in the engine compartment, and the guy I had working on it got the banjo bowls out. This part up here, he got that disconnected really good. This one down here, not so much. It was rough and would not turn, would not budge. I mean, there was just no way. You could hold this thing with a wrench and try to turn that. You ain't getting nothing. All right, we're using a line wrench too. And I said, well, we couldn't get the fuel line on the opposite side of brake loose at all, so we went ahead. It may have been welded. I tried to get it off. It wouldn't move. And so I said, well, let's go ahead and cut the line off, and we'll see if we can put a socket on it. And so that was something that, you know, before we called Toyota to see about a line, which we were going to have now, some kind of a fix. This is what that thing looked like. Now, why it was galled in there, and it hadn't been replaced. That was a '94 model car, and this was in about 2005. It had never been replaced. That's one of the reasons we were replacing it. And we needed a reliable, professional way to install the new filter, but we didn't want to pay $100 for a fuel line, right? And we didn't have a flare nut that was just right for this to screw into that filter either. However, what I did find out was that one of these barbed quarter-inch pipe fittings, like you put on the end of a hose, it's got quarter-inch pipe thread. It screwed in there really nice. I mean, it felt just like it belonged in the new filter. And I said, well, it's obviously not supposed to be pipe thread, but it's good enough for what we're going to be doing here. So it's quarter-inch pipe to 3/8 hose fitting that I got out here, brass. You know, it's not really what we needed exactly, but it could be modified to work, since the threads were the same pitch as the metric fitting on the fuel filter. Even though the metric fitting was straight and this was slightly tapered, it still worked. So pipe threads got that tapered to seal as it's tightened. Well, they matched our filter really good. So here we are. This is what the flare nut does. You know, you're basically, the ones of us that have done this know this. This is a double flare. It's folded in on itself and flared to make it nice and thick and strong. And that nut pulls it in against this cone-shaped part of this filter in there. In other words, the fitting that's made onto the filter. The flare nut presses against that matching cone-shaped thing. Okay, so it holds the line flare against this matching cone. Our quarter-inch pipe thread was close enough to do the Well, the problem with that was we left this ridge inside the fitting when we did that, and that needed to be gone because this had quarter-inch inside diameter. In other words, this right here was just right for quarter-inch tubing, which basically that tubing wasn't exactly quarter-inch because it was metric tubing, but it was close enough to quarter-inch. Okay, so we used a quarter-inch drill bit and we cleared that homemade flare nut out of that, you know, the little ridge out of there. And that made a perfect hole for the line to go through. See how good that looks? And we actually cleaned and polished that fitting and all. Well, actually, the line that we're working with is a piece of regular brake line. It's not the line off the car, but I'll get to that in a minute. So we basically were building ourselves a little end to go on the line is what we were doing. All right, we double flared the line using the double flaring tool. You can buy these at Harbor Freight, and they're not hard to learn how to use and all that. Now, they are a little aggravating if you're using anything other than that brand new nickel, nickel copper alloy brake line that they make. But that one there came out really, really good. And this one here, since we were just using a piece of pipe that was a piece of tubing, it was a piece of tubing. It didn't matter if you forgot to put the nut on this one because you just slide it on the other end. You know how sometimes you flare it and then you forgot to put the nut on it? That's really annoying. And your perfect flare is the one where you forgot to put the nut on it. And so we were able to attach the line to the fuel filter. A lot of mechanics don't know how to double flare a line. One of my students went to work at a dealership here in town where there's several mechanics in there with a lot of experience. And she called me on the phone one day and she says, I know we double flared lines in automotive class, but I forgot some of the details. Can you walk me through that? because we need to do a double flare out here. None of the mechanics knows how to do it, which boggled my mind. I also heard about another dealership where whenever the mechanics broke off a bolt, they would hire a machinist to come over and drill it out. I have never in my life worked anywhere where a mechanic was not required to drill out his own bolts and stuff and tap his own threads and all that. But I may have misunderstood that somehow, but it just seems foreign to me. Alright, the fuel systems have only got about 40 to 80 psi, so you can use a copper tubing union such as the one that you see here on that. And so what we did was we cut this line off coming from the fuel pump, and our fabricated line was this one right here. And because that line was fabricated and screwed right up in that filter just like it's supposed to, we have a new filter. We had our copper washers and our banjo bolt to go through this, and we copper tube and unioned that together, and the fix worked just like it was supposed to. Now, I had some more slides that we're going to add, but I'll put those in there next week. This is going to be a short video. This was only about 11 minutes long, and I hope you're not too disappointed in that. But I will see you guys next week, and hey, let's be careful out there.